The Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get your free financial survival toolkit and find out where to buy gold and silver safely at great prices. Sign up at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
1490 WGCH. This is Kerry Lutz, and you're listening to the Financial Survival Network, which is brought to you by Miles Franklin. They've been in business selling gold since 1990, and I'm a customer because when you buy, they ship. To find out more, go to milesfranklin.com or call them at 800-822-8080 and get a free quote. We are live at Freedom Fest 2012, Las Vegas, Nevada. And somebody who I never thought I'd see again because I thought he had vanished turned up. We bumped into each other, literally. Trace Mayer of howtovanish.com. How you doing, Trace?
Great, Kerry. Good to see you again.
It's great to see you too, man. I was totally floored when I saw you. I wasn't expecting to see you. Vanishing aside, I just didn't know you were going to be here. And you're telling me about this thing called BitCoin, which I really don't know enough about. I plead ignorance. Tell us about it. Summarize it. What is it?
Yeah, so I first got involved with Bitcoins about 3 years ago, and they were a nickel for a Bitcoin. And the current exchange rate is $7.70 for a Bitcoin, so there's been quite a bit of capital appreciation. What's so interesting about Bitcoin and what gives them their value is that they're the first decentralized, peer-to-peer encrypted currency. And so just like you can make telephone calls with Skype, you can send value to people with Bitcoins. So you can pay for all types of things. You can buy gift cards, you can exchange them for cash, you can pay for services like web hosting or alpaca socks. And so they're really turning into this currency that you can send over the internet. And what's so different from anything else out there is that it's like a literal form of digital gold that you can send over the internet. So there's no KYC, there's no AML, you don't have to set up an account with anybody because it's all free open source software. Anybody can review the code and you're able to just download it for free and begin using it, just like you're able to use Skype for free or WordPress or any of these other open source technologies like Linux.
So It's really interesting. How do you profit by it? What causes the appreciation of a Bitcoin?
Well, the Bitcoins are a sterile asset, just like gold's a sterile asset. So any value that Bitcoins have, and they don't even have value for an industrial use like gold would have. So any value they have is merely based on demand from people in the market. And the reason people demand Bitcoins is because they want to be able to perform transactions of value over distance. For example, you want to send $3,000 worth of value to someone in China. You can send it Western Union and pay a big fee. You can send it with an international wire and pay $45 or whatever. Or you can send it with Bitcoins and not have any fee at all. You know, there are no transaction fees, and they're irreversible. So it's not like you have to pay Visa or MasterCard 1 or 3 or 4 or 5% in order to process the transaction. Additionally, they can't be charged back. So as a merchant, if you ever deal with credit cards, you know that you have a significant amount that get charged back. You never have to worry about that with Bitcoins. And so that's what gives them their value is people want to use the Bitcoins to buy and sell, to basically trade. And because you're doing it peer-to-peer, it's just like a form of digital cash.
Interesting. And what's to stop the Bitcoin central bank or decentral bank from inflating these things?
Well, it's a software protocol that creates and manages the network. And so it's all open source software and anybody's able to review the code. Like currently, our current system with the Federal Reserve Central Bank, that's all closed source. We don't know how many dollars they're creating or destroying or whatever. It's all closed source. We can't review the code there, but everybody can review the code with Bitcoin. And the code can be changed and updated if a majority of the people who are contributing processing power to the network agree on doing that. And it would be extremely expensive for anybody to compromise the network in terms of processing power. For example, the Department of Energy just bought a new supercomputer. It costs $1.2 billion, and that has about as much processing power as 10% of the Bitcoin network. So if you wanted to compromise the Bitcoin network, it would take at least probably, 10 or 15 of those Department of Energy supercomputers dedicated solely to that purpose. And so the software code is open source, anyone can review it, and anybody can contribute to securing it with the processing power from their computers. And currently there are hundreds of thousands of people that are doing that, and it makes it very safe and robust and protected against any type of attacks.
Can you use it for like eBay, or do you have to convert your Bitcoin into something that eBay takes? How's that work?
Well, there's actually a bitmit.com, and it's an auction site that operates solely for Bitcoins, and it has an escrow service too. You could pay for auctions on eBay with Bitcoin. I mean, you really need to think of it like cash in your pocket. So anytime you need to transfer value to somebody, Bitcoin could fulfill that role. And might as well cut out the middlemen like Visa and MasterCard in doing that. I've got some vendors that, I had a $4,000 bill. He didn't want to pay Visa $120 to swipe the card, and I didn't want to give Visa $120. And so, we settled the transaction some other way. And Bitcoin's an excellent alternative to settle transactions, especially in an international context, so you don't have to deal with wire transfers or things of that nature.
Right, and it's not traceable, I take it. There's no audit trail left over. So the government, are they privy to your past transactions?
Yeah, so this is where Bitcoin turns our traditional value transfer systems on its head. Currently, how it works with a traditional bank account is that ownership is public and the account balance is private. For example, I can't just go to your Bank of America account and figure out what your balance is unless I'm the government, right? Yeah, sure. How Bitcoin works is the addresses are public, and the number of Bitcoins in each address, that's all public. But whoever has control of that address by having the private key that you use to unlock the cryptography that protects it, the encryption, whoever has that private key can access and move those Bitcoins around. So it is actually very public in the sense that there's a record of all the transactions in the blockchain. But being able to tie a specific identity to a particular transaction or a particular wallet, that's where you can implement strategies that really protect your transactions and basically vanish all of them if you want to, and provide you with a tremendous amount of plausible deniability.
And a lot of privacy to boot. And I understand...
Well, yeah, exactly, because I came here to Freedom Fest and they don't accept Bitcoins. And so, I decided it was worth the cost to pay for a day, but I had to pay with my credit card. Well, now there's going to be a record that I attended Freedom Fest in 2012, and 5 years or 10 years down the road, anyone who has access to those records can go into the archive, the database, search, and see that I attended Freedom Fest. Maybe somebody will get into power and decide to abuse it and want to line up everybody on a list of people who went to Freedom Fest. And another example is Stratfor. They're a global intelligence firm with a newsletter, they got hacked, and their names and addresses and passwords and credit cards all got out there. With Bitcoin, I don't have to give a merchant my name. All I do is send a certain number of coins to their address. They don't need to know my name. Why does anybody need to know my name? Why does anybody need to be able to search and know that I attended Freedom Fest, or that I bought an In-N-Out burger, or that I stayed at this particular hotel? Like, that's none of anybody's business, and the fact that I have to give up any of that information is absolutely ridiculous and raises the cost. In addition to just the transaction fees we talked about, there's now that information cost that's associated with it, and Bitcoin eliminates all of that if you use it properly.
Sounds cool. And you have written a guide to Bitcoin, correct?
Yeah, I have a guide. It's called A Beginner's Guide to Bitcoin and Bitcoin Services. It's available for free. You can get it either over at howtovanish.com or at coindl.com. And CoinDL is kind of like the Apple store of all the ebooks and other things that you can buy with Bitcoins, and so you can go download it for free, and it'll help you learn from all the mistakes I've made, because when you're dealing with a form of digital cash, you can imagine it attracts all types of unsavory characters.
And there's a learning curve there, huh?
Yeah, there's a learning curve, and so I've really tried to compress that learning curve and help you avoid the mistakes I've made where I've lost money, in some cases lost Bitcoins, and so that guide is really helpful for anyone who wants to get started. And like I I said, it's very low barrier to entry. And there are over 700,000 locations, any Walmart, 7-Eleven. You can walk in with cash, and 15 minutes later, you can have Bitcoins in your wallet that you can spend on a website. And that's not just in the U.S., but also in Brazil, Russia. They're going to be expanding to Japan, the Eurozone, and Australia. And so it's really becoming very liquid currency. Millions of dollars are changing hands every day in Bitcoin amounts, and it's growing. And if it becomes like Skype has an $8.5 billion market cap. It's 9 years old. If Bitcoin had an $8.5 million market cap in 2016, then that means each Bitcoin would be worth $540 as opposed to the current $7.70 a piece. So I think there's tremendous upside potential not only in using Bitcoin, but in spreading the message to other people. And Skype didn't give me any of that $8.5 billion, but anyone who has a Bitcoin can take part in the upside potential of Bitcoin.
That sounds really cool. Well, hey, thanks for checking in with us, Trace. Definitely going to download the free guide and learn about it, because it sounds like the Federal Reserve is in for some competition.
Oh yeah, and you look at the other technologies like this, like BitTorrent. There's hundreds of millions of people that use BitTorrent. The movie industry and the recording industry are totally pissed about it, but there's not a single thing they can do about it. And it's the same thing with Bitcoin. Like this little experiment's going to grow, and it's going to become a Godzilla, and it's going to change finance the same way that Skype changed telecommunications, that BitTorrent has changed our movie and recording industry, and WordPress has changed the way that we deliver and use our news and things of that nature. And your site runs on open source software.
Sure.
So I mean, it's not going away. It's free. It's open source, and it doesn't cost hardly anything to use. So there's really not much of a downside to doing it.
All right, man. Hey, that's really exciting. I am checking it out. I heard a little bit about it. Didn't really understand it till now. So people want to find you, howtovanish.com and runtogold.com, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Gary.